Minouche Shafiq, president of Columbia University, broke her silence on the peaceful, quiet, orderly quad of Columbia University. She tweeted out a statement here, a message from President Shafiq. And I just tweeted out here, hope they teach ratios at Columbia, because this got ratioed pretty brutally, and we will see why. Here is her statements following the police raid on the peaceful student encampment.
These past 2 weeks have been among the most difficult in Columbia's history. The turmoil and tension, division and disruption have impacted the entire community. You, our students, have paid an especially high price. You lost your final days in the classroom and residence halls. For those of you who are seniors, you're finishing college the way you started, online. No matter where you stand on any issue, Columbia should be a community that feels welcoming and safe for everyone. We tried very hard to resolve the issue of the encampment through dialogue. Many people who gathered there were largely peaceful and cared deeply about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Academic leaders talked with students for 8 days and nights. The university made a sincere and good offer, but it was not accepted.
No shit, it wasn't accepted. They told you what their aims were. You really think they're going to settle for half a loaf? Is that what you expected them to do? Is that what you expected them to do? I don't even know what your bullshit offer was, but it wasn't complete divestment from this genocidal state, which was their demand. Why would they take the offer? Schools around the country are actually giving in to the students, so why would they cave? Brown is holding a divestment vote. They're actually bringing it to a vote. And when they made the students that offer, they say, hey, we will bring this to a vote. What did the students do? They said, okay, we'll pack up and go, because that was their demand. Right. Funny how that works, okay? Right. These aren't fucking Democrats you're dealing with. Oh, well, we got the bronze plan, so let's take that and be happy, because this is how the sausage is made. No, they didn't take your bullshit offer. They shouldn't have.
A group of protesters crossed a new line with the occupation of Hamilton Hall.
A new line?
It was a violent act that put our students...
A new line? A new line at Columbia University? When is this? Has this never happened before at Columbia University? Because I seem to recall people making comparisons to the, 1968 occupation of Hamilton Hall? What do you mean a new line? There's a long history of peaceful encampments.
Yeah, but that was just, they wanted a new vending machine in the library, so it was over pretty quick.
Did they get it? Oh yeah, that one worked. Yeah,
They did. Yeah, back then you used to be able to get sandwiches in the vending machine.
That's right.
Yeah, that was the issue. They only had the candy ones.
That's right. Those were the days.
At risk, as well as putting the protesters at risk. I walked through the building and saw the damage, which was distressing.
Sleeping bags on the floor, chairs piled in front of the door. The NYPD showed us the damage too. What was distressing? What was there? A broken window? Like I said, this university is the biggest landlord in New York City. They sit on $4 billion worth of land alone, and they get over $1.2 billion in federal funding. For what reason? I have no fucking clue, but they get subsidies from the government. So what was distressing?
I think my interpretation of that, because I think that was in a segment that we did the other day. Yeah, because Columbia goes back to the British land grants.
Yes, of course, yeah. Trinity Church and Columbia University, yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
NYU was the largest landholder, but I guess now they're second, and I guess the Catholic Church is third now.
This is what I mean by these Ivy League schools are connected to old and deep money. They're not just good schools.
Oh, yeah.
This is real power shit. This is real shit you're talking about here.
But despite all that has happened, I have confidence. During the listening sessions I held with many students in recent months, I've been heartened by your intelligence, thoughtfulness, and kindness. The ones that impressed me the most were those who acknowledged that the other side had some valid points. We need more of that at Columbia.
Yeah.
Every one of us has a role to play in bringing back the values of truth and civil discourse that polarization has severely damaged. Here at Columbia, Parallel reality.
They don't sound too woke now, do they? Sound like a bunch of
This-
middle-of-the-road fucking Democrats to me. See, this is what I mean, how it's all bullshit. What these people are. This is an institution that hired Hillary Clinton to teach a class in leadership or whatever the fuck it was, foreign policy decision-making. That's who they are. They're not woke,
basically,
they're not
it's like
progressive. They're not blue-haired. She got blue hair. You see any blue hair on her? No. These are centrist, rich Democrats who run these schools. And they control them in accordance with who they are.
it's like masterclass, only you're paying $60,000 a year for it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, like masterclass for 60 grand a year.
And parallel conversations have walled us off from other perspectives. Working together, I know we can break down these barriers. As many of you know, I was born in the Middle East. I grew up in a Muslim family with many Jewish and Christian friends. I spent 2 decades working in international organizations.
My
with people
first
from
nickname
every
at the
nationality
university
and
was Manouche the Token Stefanik.
Yeah, exactly. Like very proudly. Like that makes it any better.
They love that. They
Yeah.
love that. They need brown faces to cover over their agenda. They can't have white people doing this. They have to. That's why they need Kamala. That's why they need Jim Clyburn. That's why that's exactly why you have a career. That's why they needed Obama. They need people like that because they like nothing better than someone like this to hide behind when they're enacting these policies.
Hey, she was born in the Middle East.
Oh yeah, well, see.
Yeah.
Well, I forget his name, but yeah, one of the most destructive figures in American history was the Native American vice president, because they needed a Native American to really decimate that community, and then they could say, "But he's Native American."
Right.
And that's the trick they still pull. One thing that also occurred to me at the dissident dialogues. This is nothing new, but I think we lose sight of it. Much of the cultural conversation, not just now, but at any given time, it's really a fight over manners between elites. Even when you go back to the 60s, I mean, who do you think was at Woodstock? Plumbers?
Right.
I mean, it's really a fight over lifestyle. And usually these arguments are arguments between people who have a lot of privilege. If you look at the argument over pronouns and things, it's a real argument going on, but it's an argument going on amongst an upper class, right? I mean, the average person is not even talking about things like that, as you have very often pointed out. It's but in the end, you always have to keep in mind these people might be having an intramural disagreement about manners, but in the end, they're all on the same team.
Of course. And this proves that. I want to get to, there's one thing in here that I really want to focus in on coming up.
Working in international organizations with people from every nationality and religion in the world, where if you can't bridge divides and see the other side's point of view, you can't get anything done. I learned from that experience that people can disagree and still make progress. The issues that are challenging us, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, anti-Semitism, and anti-Arab and anti-Muslim bias, have existed for a long time. And Columbia, despite being a remarkable institution, cannot solve them single-handedly. What we can do is be an exemplar of a better world, where people who disagree do so civilly, recognize each other's humanity, and show empathy and compassion for one another.
Okay, I want to play that part again.
Of a better world, where people who disagree do so civilly, recognize each other's humanity, and show empathy and compassion for one another.
Okay, I'm going to say this very diplomatically, partly because we're here in East Berlin, but partly because I don't mean this as a slur against anybody. It's not about what religion anybody is, what color anybody is, where anybody comes from. If you are okay with the deliberate starvation of children, I do not recognize your humanity. How's that? I do not recognize the humanity of a person who supports the intentional mass murder and mass starvation of innocent people. So you could shove all that conciliatory rhetoric up your ass. That's the less diplomatic side of it. And like I said, I'm not here to dehumanize people. It's not about you're not a human being. You have no humanity if you support what is going on in Gaza right now, which is why the protesters weren't going to accept your bullshit offer to get them off of the lawn. Okay? You cannot expect that kind of civility discourse during an incident like this. I'm sorry. No deal. Everybody should be safe, and everybody was safe according, not to me, not to Russell, according to the NYPD. All of the counter-protesters were safe. The NYPD has not cited a single act of violence on the part of the Free Palestine people who were there set up on NYU, New School, or King's College, which is my new name for Columbia University, which happens to be its old name. That's all well and good. No one should be violently assaulted or threatened, and no one should be slurred, okay? But I do not have to recognize the humanity of someone who supports blocking aid into Gaza, deliberately starving kids. I don't have to recognize the humanity of a person like that, and I don't. And so all of this kumbaya, we need to rise above it, that's fucking nonsense. That's fucking nonsense. And the kids on that quad know that that's nonsense. And that's really partly why you had to send the NYPD in. Because, as Russell said, this is all a politics of manners to these people. It's all a parlor game to these people. Once you actually lay down the law and you say, no, we're willing to put our bodies on the line non-violently through civil disobedience for a cause that we feel extremely passionate about and we're not willing to compromise on, well, that's out of bounds. That's out of bounds. Now we have to call the police.
Okay,
that's who these people are.
You want to see how much this is about manners. You want to make yourself feel crazy. If you haven't already subjected yourself to this, go look at John McWhorter's, he is a professor at Columbia. Go look at his op-ed. His op-ed, his opening paragraph, which, that's where you want to grab the audience and bring them over to your side, right? You know what he describes as demonstrating the horror of these protests? He was teaching John Cage, and John Cage has a composition that famously has 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. And he's complaining that he can't do that because the students are too loud with their chanting on the lawn. And he also doesn't want to subject any of his Jewish and Israeli students to this. So basically, these students are having the poor taste to disrupt his lesson in John Cage's fucking mental masturbation and conceptual bullshit. All right. That's more important. And he presents it like this is tragic. This is tragic that they can't sit in silence because of these protests. How fucking out of touch do you have to be? Even if you disagree with the principle of the protest, we're talking about serious things. There's no dispute about the body count, really, about it being in the tens of thousands. There's no real dispute about that, no matter where you land on this. So you must acknowledge that that's what we're talking about. That's the issue at hand, which, of course, I shouldn't say that. Sitting there for 2 days and listening to John McWhorter on 2 different panels, they don't acknowledge that.
No, it's about blue-haired people and their woke
they
bullshit.
refuse.
It's about that you can't get laid,
Yes.
no one likes them, they're
That's
unattractive.
it. They refuse to entertain the idea that they could be protesting for any reason other than woke virtue signaling. They do not even. In his article, he acknowledges it as a possibility, but I think that's because he's writing on the record. When he was on that panel, on those panels, no. And I will show the clip once they drop it. Yes, I thought we were past peak woke until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, now, to be fair, I think a lot of the students are no. When he knew he's in a friendly room, he didn't feel any need to qualify his views that way.
Right. Exactly.
Please clap.